Someone may object to all this that the statements of God's Word do not agree with this point of view. At random, memory brings up a few very familiar passages frequently quoted. "Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and will show thee great things and difficult that thou knowest not." Jeremiah chapter 33 verse 3. "And call upon me in the day of trouble, I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me." Psalm 50 verse 15. "Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you." Matthew chapter 7 verse 7. Here it seems, as we have for generations been accustomed to think, that our asking is the thing that influences God to do, and further that many times persistent, continued asking is necessary to induce God to do. And the usual explanation for this need of persistence is that God is testing our faith and seeking to make certain changes in us before granting our requests. This explanation is without doubt quite true in part, yet the thing to mark is that it explains only in part, and when the whole circle of truth is brought into view, this explanation is found to cover only a small part of the whole. We seem to learn best about God by analogies. The analogy never brings all there is to be learned, yet it seems to be the nearest we can get. From what we know of ourselves, we come to know Him. Will you notice how men give? Among those who give to benevolent enterprises, there are three sorts of givers, with variations in each. There is the man who gives because he is influenced by others. If the right man or committee of men call and deftly present their pleas, playing skillfully upon what may appeal to him, his position, his egotism, the possible advantage to accrue, what men whom he wants to be classed with are doing, and so on through the wide range that such men are familiar with. If they persist, by and by he gives. At first he seems reluctant, but finally gives with more or less grace. That is one sort of giver. There is a second sort, the man of truly benevolent heart, who is desirous of giving that he may be of help to other men. He listens attentively when pleas come to him, and waits only long enough to satisfy himself of the worth of the cause, and the proper sort of amount to give, and then gives. There is a third sort, the rarest sort. This second man, a stage farther on, who takes the initiative. He looks about him, makes inquiries, and thinks over the great need in every direction of his fellow men. He decides where his money may best be used to help, and then himself offers to give. But his gift may be abused by some who would get his money if they could, and use it injudiciously, or otherwise than he intends. So he makes certain conditions which must be met, the purpose of which is to establish sympathetic relations in some particular with those whom he would help. An Englishman's heart is strongly moved to get the story of Jesus to the inland millions of Chinese. He requests the China Inland Mission to control the expenditure of almost $1 million of his money, in such a way as best to secure the object in his heart. An American gives a large sum to the Young Men's Christian Association of his home city, to be expended as directed. His thought is not to build up this particular organization, but to benefit large numbers of the young men of his town, who will meet certain conditions which he thinks to be for their good. He has learned to trust this organization, and so it becomes his trustee. Another man feels that if the people of New York City can be given good reading, they can thereby best be helped in life, and so he volunteers money for a number of libraries throughout that city, and thousands who yearn to increase their knowledge come into sympathy with him in that one point through his gift. In all such cases, the giver's thought is to accomplish certain results in those whose purpose, in certain directions, is sympathetic with his own. Any human illustration of God must seem crude. Yet of these three sorts of givers, there is one and only one that begins to suggest how God gives. It may seem like a very sweeping statement to make, yet I am more and more disposed to believe it true that most persons have unthinkingly thought of God's answering prayer as the first of these three men give. Many others have had in mind some such thought as the second suggests. Yet to state the case even thus definitely is to make it plain that neither of these ways in any manner illustrate God's giving. The third comes the nearest to picturing the God who hears and answers prayer. Our God has a great heart, yearning after his poor prodigal world, and after each one in it. He longs to have the effects of sin removed and the original image restored. He takes the initiative. Yet everything that is done for man must of necessity be through man's will, by his free and glad consent. The obstacles in the way are not numberless nor insurmountable, but they are many and they are stubborn. There is a keen, cunning pretender prince who is a past master in the fine art of handling men. There are wills warped and weakened, consciences blurred, minds the opposite of keen, sensibilities whose edge has been dulled beyond ordinary hope of being ever made keen again. Sin has not only stained the life, but warped the judgment, sapped the will, and blurred the mental vision. And God has a hard time just because every change must of necessity be through that sapped and warped will. Yet the difficulty, though great, is never complex, but very simple. And so the statement of his purpose is ever exquisitely simple. Listen again. Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and show thee great things and difficult, which thou knowest not. If a man call, he has already turned his face towards God. His will has acted, and acted doubly, away from the opposite and towards God. A simple step,